So with all the talk of the NES Classic these days, it's the little console that Nintendo released. It looks just like this NES. This is an original one, my rather beat up example here. The NES Classic came out. It's a great little console. It's really hard to find. I think it's $70 US, but basically impossible to buy. So I thought, what could I do to play some classic Nintendo games? I only have a few for this one left. I kind of got rid of them all a long time ago. Emulation's possible with a Raspberry Pi. There's, of course, software emulators you can just run on your Windows computer, Mac, or Mac or PC. But part of the problem is you're not playing on a classic television. That's the old feel you get when you played Nintendo when you were a kid. With the NES Classic, it's HDMI only, so there's no way you can play it on just a standard NTSC television. Kind of how I still like to play it, with zero lag time on the display. So I looked around and I decided to pick something up. And it's this right here. The 100 Best Video Games. It's a black NES cartridge. I love that it says official Nintendo seal. There's nothing official about this thing. These multi-carts are pretty common. You know, they load a bunch of games on there and you put it in, there's a menu and whatnot. So the thing is, though, a lot of them just are full of crap games, or it might say 300 games and there's only 40 games and they repeat over and over again inside the menus. This one is different, though. I got this off eBay and here's the listing for it. So it cost $35 and the seller was, Priya 1979. But they're pretty common. You can find a ton of these out there. So just look for them. They should be around $35. This one had free shipping. It did come from China. The one you're looking for is this specific one that says NES Multi-Game Cartridge, the 100 Best Video Games. And even though it's 100 Best, it's actually a 143-in-1, and it's a region-free cartridge. The other ones that are out there may be a little bit cheaper, but those have not as good a selection of games and whatnot. So this is the one. This is the one we're going to be reviewing today, and I'll show you a little bit about it. This is the game list on this cartridge. If you don't have HD video, you won't be able to see this. I apologize for that. It's a really good selection. All 4 Adventure Islands, Adventures of Lolo 1 and 2, Balloon Fights on here, both Batmans. I loved that first Batman game. I played the crap out of that. Bionic Commando, one of my favorite games of all time. Blades of Steel, Blaster Master, both Bombermans, both Bubble Bobbles. Castlevania 1 and 2. Now, there was a Castlevania 3 on the NES, but if you remember, that's notoriously hard to emulate. It uses a very weird mapper, and that's the game that has trouble on most of the clone systems. In fact, I don't have a Nintendo clone, but I have a feeling any of the games that have trouble on the clones are probably not on this cartridge for the fact of their strange mappers that are in use. Chippendale, Contra, Contra 4, Super Contra, now Crystalis, Deja Vu, Donkey Kongs, 4 Double Dragons, Dr. Mario, another great game, 2 DuckTales, Excitebike, Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3, 2 Flintstones game, Friday the 13th, Galaga, the Goonies game 1 and 2, Gradius, Ice Climber, Ice Hockey, Ikari 1, 2, 3, Mega Mans are on here, a Lode Runner, Maniac Mansion. I always thought that was Manic Mansion when I was growing up. Metal Gear, of course. Metroid. Ninja Gaiden or Gaiden. I always called it Gaiden. Pac-Man. Power Blade 1 and 2. Rad Racers on here. Rampage. River City Ransom, Russian Attack, Rygar, Spider-Man, Spy Hunter, Star Wars, and The Empire Strikes Back, Star Tropics 1 and 2 are on here, Mario Brothers, of course Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, Ninja Turtles 1, 2, and 3, Tecmo Super Bowl's on here, Terminator 1 and 2, then of course Tetris 1 and 2, Tiny Toon Adventures 1 and 2, Zelda 1 and 2. One of the things that's interesting is you see it says remark here, and some of them say battery save and some say SRAM use. I'm actually not too sure how those work. The battery save, I think, is for games, say, like Zelda 1, that, you know, clearly can save to the battery. So that works as expected, I would think. I still have yet to test that, but we'll test that together. As far as SRAM use, Bionic Commando, a game I'm very familiar with, that has no built-in save feature. So I don't know what SRAM use actually means. Some of these other games say SRAM use as well, which don't normally have a save feature like Tetris 2 and Turtles 1. There aren't any real instructions with this cartridge, so it doesn't really say how to use those. But this is a decent selection, especially for $35. Quite a bit better than the Nintendo Classic or the NES Classic. But of course, you do need to have an actual NES to play any of these. This cartridge uses standard screws, so I decided to open it up and take a look inside. So that's interesting. Essentially, it's a Famicom cartridge here, not even fully seated in there. And this is an adapter for Famicom cartridges into regular US style Nintendo cartridges. They literally just glued the cartridge in. There's nothing holding it in at all. That is hilarious. Now what you can see is it does have a normal 2032 battery in there. So that's kind of neat. So let's take a look at these chips here. That is most definitely a flash chip. And then, what these are, I'm not too sure. I'm going to have to look them up. SMD 2016 429. None of that says very much. Interesting though, it says Mind Kids. I wonder if this here is a security chip for the US models. Probably is. Tiny, an AT Tiny. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is perhaps programmed with some code to send the security codes to the Nintendo, because my non-clone unit would have a problem with any kind of cartridge that doesn't have a security chip in it. But I bet you that's exactly what this is here. Some of the old Nintendo games, when you open up the cartridge, it was the same thing as a Famicom cartridge with an adapter, but there was a Nintendo chip right here that basically was the security chip for the US consoles. There appear to be holes under this elastic here where they could have actually used screws. See right there and there? They could have used screws to actually screw it into the cartridge. It appears to have the holes in the right spot. So on the back side here is a sharp, I'm assuming this is some kind of RAM. And there's the battery, the 2032, and that's the only components on the back side, and there's nothing on the back side of this adapter either. But you know that if the battery ever does die and you start to have problems with this, you can just easily open it up. There are no security screws on this cartridge, just uses standard Phillips screws. So of course, like any NES game, when you use this, there's no loading times, there's no boot up times, it's instant on. So let's just show you how this works here on the Sony. Pop it into console. Ah yes, the old problem. Just as a side note, you should never blow on your NES cartridges. The water from your spit can actually cause corrosion on the pins and makes it worse. For me, what works is just move the cartridge back and forth in the socket. And there we go. Now you saw when I turned on the console, it popped up instantly. And this is the interface here. It's actually not too bad. You can see the list of games that are on here. It says Super UFO. I think Super UFO was actually like a flash cartridge for the SNES. But you can go through all the games pretty quickly. You can just push left and right here to kind of scroll through. And when you see a game you like, you just hit start, and then the game starts. To get back to the menu, you just have to push reset on the console, and you get the main menu again. And pushing backwards or to the left actually goes, back through the menu. So a quick way to get to games like Zelda. There you go. So the interface of the cartridge is good. And unlike a lot of those stupid multicarts, there's absolutely no fake games on here. Every single game works on here. And there's no renamed clones and other silly things that those other cartridges have. Okay, so here we are at the main menu. You have to excuse my video capture device. It's pretty much the world's crappiest one, which is why it looks so junky. So let's just look at a couple of these games. Here we are with Adventure Island, of course. I owned this game when I was a kid, and man, did I play the crap out of it. It was a pretty junky game. But this is one of the problems when you were a kid. You got your parents to buy you a game, and you really only had a few games, so you kind of had to play it, even if it wasn't very good. And I remember getting so frustrated at this game, and I thought I was a pretty good, game player. Skills, and it's just, not too much to report here. It's pretty crappy, but it works. It works great. Here's Balloon Fight. This is one of the games that's on the NES Classic, and This is a pretty difficult game. It's a clone of Joust, as everyone has seen, and it's pretty hard, actually. This is a two-player game, and the funny thing is you can pop each other's balloons. Oops, see, I just did a mistake there. But you can look online for reviews of this. Oh, I just died. The interesting thing is it has another mode like this. So if you do Balloon Trip, this is just a super hard game where you have to pick up balloons without hitting any of the flashing stars there. So watch. And the controls are pretty difficult. You kind of have this momentum, and I'd say like this is a real early version of Flappy Birds, to be honest. So you have to kind of flap around. It's really hard. Batman's another game I owned when I was a kid. This is a pretty fantastic NES game. It just has, well, what I thought at the time were really good graphics. If we kind of skip the intro here. Yeah, like the Sunsoft made some pretty good games when it comes to the graphics styling. Very kind of dithered backgrounds, you know, it wasn't just solid colors and things. I'm pretty sucky at this now, but when I was a younger kid, I used to be able to finish this game. It has no save capability, so you kind of have to do, not screw up too badly. But you have the ability to jump off walls like that. It's a pretty great game. I'd say, you know, this is if you're going to have a classic collection of NES games, this is one of them. Here we are at Bionic Commando. This is definitely my favorite game of all time on the NES. This one I owned when I was a kid, and I still kept this cartridge to this day. This game has different mechanics than most games. Oops, I'm sorry, I don't know why we're skipping here. So let's just go down to a level here. I'll give you a little demo. I mean, I'm not going to review these games. You can see reviews on YouTube elsewhere. But basically, this game, unlike other games, you have no ability to jump. You can walk back and forward, you can duck, you can shoot either direction, and then you have this bionic arm. As you can see, it kind of connects to it's connecting to that there. You push, and then I can push the thing and I can swing. So that's how you get around on this game, is you have to swing around. It's pretty cool that it's just different, but there's a problem. This game is at least one game on this cartridge that's glitchy, and it's not really playable. I mean, you can see right now it's working fine, but there's a big problem. If we go back into this room here, we go to this communication station, so you talk to these guys, you communicate, but I'm going to exit out of that. That's not right. So there's no more color. The door is here, so I can exit out of the room. Okay, and I'm back in the game, and that's working. But there are other problems. If you push the select button, and if I push that now, that worked normally. But if I push it again, it goes back to game. Look at this. What the hell? So the game is still working, but this makes it kind of unplayable. I mean, I'm pretty good at Bionic Commando. Oops, I just died. And when it resets, you're back and you're working normally. I played a little further in the game, and it gets very glitchy in the same way. When you go through doors, then the color palette's all screwed up. Of course, if you use the select button and you unselect it, you know, looks like this. See, even if I go into this room here and I do the same thing, that's a bummer to me. Of course, it's not that big a deal. I own the cartridge, but if you bought this just for Bionic Commando, you'll probably be disappointed at this exact problem. Here's Blades of Steel seems to work fine. I'm not good at this game, so let's just give this a test here. Yeah, all is normal, but it does seem to work at this much. Bomberman, what a franchise this became. I never actually played the original NES version, but I played a lot of this on other consoles. But this is a two-player game, and it's pretty fun when in two-player mode. The old Bubble Bobble. Who didn't play this game? Taito, 1988. What a great game. This game is way better with two people. But I love this game. I used to just have so much fun at it. So this seems to work. I played this through several levels without any ill effects. So that's cool. Castlevania. this game works as well. I played through quite a bit of this. I used to love this game as a kid. This is one of the cartridges I don't have anymore, but I did own. And as far as I can tell, this game works perfectly. So definitely a classic. Who doesn't remember Contra? Another classic. Absolutely classic NES game. Look at this. It's just so cool. I haven't played this in a long time. Another game that with 2-player mode is just way better. It's just so funny. Like, this is so much better to play on the real thing. Oh, look at that. I just immediately died. It's just so fun to play this on a television than it is, you know, on an emulator. At least for me, it just feels different. And it's not even that the way the graphics look. It's just the instantaneous response of the console. Just feels different than when it's played through an emulator. There's just a bit more lag, and I really remember this extremely low latency playback that you got when you were on the actual console. Super Contra by Konami here, released in 1990. I mean, this was definitely much later in the lifespan of this console. The NES console came out originally in 1984 in Japan, so games like this in the 90s, I mean, this is long time, and it, you know, they had really figured out a lot about how to you know, program this thing as best as possible. Double Dragon, another just classic game. Seems to work perfectly on this console here. Huh, look at the little fight scene. Oh no, don't take her, that's terrible. Mission 1. So, yeah, everything seems to work fine on this game as well. Dr. Mario. Pretty fun game. This is sort of like a Tetris clone, but you get these little pills and you gotta line up the colors. I mean, I think a million clones of these have been made over the years. This absolutely is a blast with 2-player mode. So, very much recommended if you have someone else who likes to play. Excite Bike. What can I say about this game other than it's terrible but fun at the same time? Especially because this was originally a disc game in Japan, and you could actually load and save your track design. But yet, when they released it here in the U.S., it was on a cartridge, of course, with no, you know, way to save or load. This was before they had the battery backed up cartridges like on Zelda. But you still had the load and save functionality. So we hit load, it just does this. It sort of craps out, and save is the same thing. It's so hilarious. They literally had this functionality and they didn't even take it out. They just left it and put a cartridge out with this on there. But this game is on the Nintendo Classic, so they felt it was good enough. It is fun. I mean, for 5 minutes at least. This is one of the very early games on the NES, so people often had this, you know, or if they had a console early on, just because there just wasn't a lot of choices back then. Galaga. This came out in '88 for Nintendo. It's a pretty good. I'd say it's a pretty decent, you know, interpretation of this game. It was originally an arcade game, of course. The graphics are, you know, a lot worse. This was obviously a vertical game originally, and now it's, you know, has to fit onto a horizontal screen. So they put the score up on the side there. This has 2-player mode, but not concurrent. You take turns. This is Goonies. I don't know why I remember this game. It sucks, I have to say. But, you know, it has the fun Goonies music. It's just, you go around and kick these rats and pick up bombs, and you can drop bombs like that. Which, if you walk into the explosion like I just did, it kills you. Gradius. Boy, did I play a lot of this when I was a kid. This was a game I did not own, but I had a friend who did. This game really would benefit from a turbo controller, because you have to... If you hold down the button, it shoots very slowly. But yeah, not a bad game, I have to say. Kind of cool to play this again. God, I just remember playing the hell out of this. Ikari Warriors. Another very popular game. Early on in the Nintendo's life, too, 1986, so a lot of people had this. I used to play this. I never owned it, but it was pretty fun. It's just, you know, That's right, I forgot how slow the graphics are. I swear this runs at like 15 frames per second. Which, you know, is actually kind of unusual. Yeah, he's very sluggish. Yeah, this is terrible, how slow this is. Anyone remember what this is? Yeah, Kid Icarus, or Kid Icarus, as some friends used to call it, but I was like, I always thought it was Icarus. I'm pretty sure it is. This is a first-party Nintendo game. It's kind of dumb, you know. I mean, you're this guy with a harp, and you're like, can fly and shoot snakes, but if you walk to the side of the screen, you see you wrap around. So that's how this game works. It's always wrapping around, sideways. Like an upward scroller. That's what you're always doing. You're always going up. But I remember playing quite a bit of this with my friends. Even though I'd say this is not one of the better games, but it's just memorable. Here's Mega Man. What a franchise. I love Mega Man 8 and Mega Man X4 on the PlayStation. It's strange because I'm really good at those. And even though, you know, they're very similar in gameplay to this, I kind of suck at the Nintendo ones. I was never good at them, even though definitely a great game franchise. And to be honest, now that I have these, you know, games that I can play, I feel like I'm gonna learn how to use these, how to play these. I mean, I'm terrible, but the graphics are great. Gameplay is fast and responsive, and you know, you got to learn the patterns of these enemies, and then you can progress pretty far. I jumped to Mega Man 6 here, which is 1993. Definitely one of the later games ever released for this NIT console. You can really tell the difference. They added a lot of functionality here. So let's take a look here. Much more sophisticated backgrounds. You can now slide, so that's cool. You have power shot by holding this shot button down. Boy, I'm still terrible. See, you have monsters like this guy. He's just a jerk. Okay, this sucks. I'm terrible. I'm so bad at these games. But it's amazing how much nicer this game looks. I mean, it just has so much cooler, more detailed graphics than the first one. And it's just amazing that this console had so much longevity. Almost 10 years it was out. Metroid. An absolute classic. And yes, it's on here. I played through a little bit. Appears to work totally normally. Well, that's cool. Yeah, wow, what a just awesome game. Slow down. And I died. I suck. Rad Racer, 1987. This is a pretty poor game. It's kind of like Outrun. Graphics are kind of crap, I have to say. You see for yourself. It's move left and right. How to avoid the other cars. Volkswagen Bug, really? Pretty shameless that this car I'm driving looks even like a Ferrari, kind of like it does on Outrun. And look at that crashing. It's so similar. But really, the graphics are poor. It's worse than like an EGA graphics on the IBM PC version. I didn't mention that Kirby's Big Adventure is on here. This is one of the very last Nintendo games made by Nintendo for this console. And it's actually amazing. It really plays just like an SNES game. I mean, not just like, but this could easily be an SNES game. I mean, look at the graphics. It has save capability, so you can like inhale your little friends here, and then you can shoot them out at other ones. It's kind of a fun game. Ouch, ouch. All right, so yes, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3 are included on here, and they all work absolutely perfectly. So the Tetris that's on here is a strange 10-gen version. I think this is either like an unauthorized cartridge, that was released with the reverse engineered security chip, because this is not the Nintendo one that I recall. The Nintendo one came out after the Game Boy version. I think that was very popular. It might be what's called Tetris 2 on here. Let's take a look. Yeah, Tetris 2. This is the Nintendo version. Oh no, this is actually Tetris 2. Okay, this is not the Tetris I was thinking of. So there's another Tetris that exists. This was Nintendo's second Tetris game. There was definitely a first Nintendo Tetris game that was released sometime around the time of... Oh, this is weird. This is like Dr. Mario. Zelda. One of the best games of all time, huh? Definitely one of the classics here. Oops. And I'm sucking. Big time. Actually, the scrolling's a little weird there. Do you see what's going on there? That seems very glitchy. Does anyone remember if that's how the game is? That is not how the game is originally. The up and down scrolling works fine. But the sideways scrolling is definitely wacky. Doesn't seem to ruin the game in any way. Yeah. Okay, let's test out the save game there. I should have saved my name in there. Okay, I turned the console off and on. Let's pick Zelda 1, see what happens. Ah, look at that. ABC still saved in there. So, okay, so the save functionality at least seems to work, at least for one game. I did read somewhere that said you could only save the save game on one game at a time. So if you use the save game on something else, battery save is supported, say, on Zelda 2, that it would overwrite Zelda 1. Let's give that a check. Here we are in Zelda 2. Register my name. DCB. Let's play this. Okay, I died. Let's try to save. Okay, so I'm going to turn the console off and on. Let's give Zelda 2 a test to see if the save game is still there. I don't see why it wouldn't be. There it is. Great. Turn the console off and on. And let's look to Zelda 1. Oops. Yeah, so it is confirmed. If you save the game on one game and then you save a game on a different game, it overwrites your original save game. That's unfortunate that it does that, but it's a limitation we can live with. It's not ideal, but could be worse. So that's the 100 best video games cartridge for the NES. Would I recommend this cartridge? Absolutely. Even though it has a couple of glitches like the Bionic Commando and the Zelda glitch, plus the ability to only save one game at a time without overwriting the others, it's still a pretty good value for people who are casual players, non-collectors. This is a great way to get a lot of games, 143 decent Nintendo games all at once on one cartridge. So you can use your old NES and, have some fun with some friends, play two-player, stuff like that. So yeah, there we go. If you found any of this helpful, give me a thumbs up. Feel free to ask me questions. Check the description below. There'll be some information on where I got this and also the list of games if you want to see that up close for yourself. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.